What is the targeted rate of return that you think you need to hit every year to be able to retire comfortably to the lifestyle that you want to be able to live? Yo, let's talk about it in the comments below. Let's get it. Hey guys, welcome to the hashtag Get Real Woke podcast. I'm your host, Frederick D. Scott. I'm a private equity investor, business consultant, philanthropist, author, and contributing writer for Entrepreneur Magazine. I have over 15 years of experience in the finance industry, and I used to own an investment banking and advisory firm. Currently, I hold designations as a financial modeling and valuation analyst, capital markets and securities analyst, commercial banking and credit analyst, and I have a diploma in Islamic finance. And today is hashtag for the free Friday. This is the time where I come on every week and teach you the things that I think you need to know step by step in an easy to understand format to help you on your journey to achieving the things that you want to achieve in your personal and professional life. Now, before I jump into today's topic, I need everybody to hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, hit the bell notification. Definitely leave me a comment in the bottom of this video. Let me know what you think. You know, we gotta make sure that YouTube algorithm hitting the right way, right? And make sure you hit the join button if you're on an Android phone. And if you're on an iPhone, make sure you hit the link in the description or pin to the comments so you can join the hashtag Real Woke live chat community and be eligible to participate in the hashtag Learn to Earn Cash giveaway, where I give away a minimum of $1,000 every single month live right here on the hashtag Get Real Woke podcast. Okay, let's get into it today. So today we're going to continue our retail investing series. And now we about to level up. Oh, we level up, baby. Oh, we level up. Let's get it. All right, check it out. So today, I want to start talking about the investment risk profile, right? This is very, very, very important when you're starting your journey into making investments that are going to be long-term and viable for your ultimate goals personally and professionally. In order to be able to invest properly, in order to be able to invest safely, you have to understand what your risk profile is. And there are 3 points to understanding risk profile, right? And that's risk need, risk-taking ability, and behavioral loss tolerance, right? So today we're going to focus on risk need. And when we get into risk need, there are 3 factors to that, which is the required rate of return, the market risk environment, and the consequence of failure. Today we're going to focus on the required rate of return, right? So before we get into that though, let's cover some baseline things that I think are important so we can get a baseline understanding of what we're doing here. So what is the goal of investing? What do you think the goal of investing is? Yo, drop me a comment in the bottom of this video and let me know what you think the goal of investing is. Now, I'm going to tell you what we say the goal of investing is on Wall Street. We say that the goal of investing is to maximize capital appreciation while mitigating risk to its lowest common denominator. Simply put, what we're saying is we want to make the maximum amount of money we possibly can while taking the least amount of risk possible. The second point being more important than the first, right? Which is while taking the least amount of risk possible. And what we're talking about here when we talk about that is what we call capital or principal preservation. If I invest $100 in something, I want to know that in the worst case scenario, there is a greater than not likelihood that I'll at least get the $100 or the principal that I invested back, right? The rate of return or the return on investment is secondary. Yes, I want to hit my targeted rate of return annually, and we'll talk about what a targeted rate of return is. But it doesn't matter if I hit my targeted rate of return, right? If I never get my principal back. Let's explain what I mean by that. So let's say that I invest $100 and the person that I invest $100 with says that in 3 months, they're going to give me $50. Great. 3 months comes, they give me $50 on my investment, right? However, all they have is $50. They can't give me my principal back because things went left, so all they have is the $50. Great. They gave me the return, right? But because I never got my principal back, I never got the initial money that I invested back, I'm at a net loss of 50%. So I actually lost instead of gaining. And this is why capital preservation is so important. Principal investment preservation is so important. And that's why you have to have a greater priority on that than you do on your targeted rate of return. All money is not good money, and everything that sounds good is not good, right? So if you are not thinking, if you're only focused on, the money that you're going to make for giving up your principal, you may find yourself in a situation where you lose the principal. You may even find yourself in a worse situation where you don't even get the return and you lose the principal. So you're at 100% loss at that point. So it's very important that we understand what the goal of investing is and the type of mentality that you have to have when you begin this journey toward investing in the various asset classes that there are to invest in. And don't worry, once we complete our investment risk profiling series, I'm going to jump into the asset classes. Now, all right, let's talk about something else. I want to talk to you about risk versus reward. On Wall Street, we understand that the more risk you take, the higher the return that you can potentially get, right? So risk is directly correlated with return. The more risk, the higher the return potential. The lower the risk, the lower the potential return potential. That's important to understand, right? And, at the end of this video, I'm going to give you an example of what I mean of that. But, you have to understand what your level of comfortable risk is. And this is why we're talking about risk profiling. But what I want you to understand for this point is that return is commensurate or directly correlated to risk. Let me give you a good example right now. Okay, let's say your credit is not the best. It's good enough to be approved for a credit card, but you don't have an over 700 FICO score. For that, right, because your FICO score is lower than what is considered the prime rate or the greatest rate or what we call the A1 rate, okay, what happens now is we charge you a higher interest rate than we would somebody with an over 700 FICO score. And the reason why that is, what we call that is a risk premium. There is a greater probability that you will default on your credit card obligation. And so to compensate for that higher level of risk, we charge you a higher interest rate. Conversely, if you have an over 700 FICO score, you've got excellent A1 credit, Well, the risk of you not being able to pay your credit card obligations is lower. And so the interest rate that we charge you is lower. So our return is lower when the risk is lower, and our potential return is higher when the risk is higher. So that's a good way to understand the correlation between risk and return. Now, let's jump into today's topic, which is determining the targeted rate of return. So I want to, before we do that, I need to jump into and explain to you what the difference is between return on investment and rate of return. They're two totally separate things, and you need to understand what the difference is between the two. Most people talk about return on investment. People that understand investing and that investing is for the long term focus on what we call the targeted rate of return, right? So what is return on investment? So return on investment, or ROI for short, is an approximate measure of an investment's profitability, right? That is what return on investment is. And I want to demonstrate the math formula behind this so you kind of understand a little bit better how it works. So let me share my screen, and I want to, and let's take a look at the math behind return on investment. Now, okay, boom, here we go. Everybody see that? I hope so. All right, now, return on investment formula works like this, right? It's the investment gain divided by the investment base times 100, right? The investment gain divided by the investment base times 100. So let's look at the formula. Let's say you invest $50,000. That's your principal, right? Your principal that you're investing into the investment is $50,000. And let's say that at the end, when you get everything back, you get $80,000, right? So the first thing I need to do is take what you got. You got $80,000. And now what I need to do is subtract the initial investment from that, which was your $50,000. So I take $80,000 and I subtract that from $50,000. And then I divide that by the initial investment, which is $50,000. And then I multiply it by 100, as you see in the formula here. And what I figure out is my return on investment is 60%, right? So the return on investment that I got is 60%. However, that's a helpful formula, and it's used for a number of different things. But when you're investing, you have to be focused on the targeted rate of return, your annualized rate of return. You need to understand that formula, and you need to understand the math behind that. So what is rate of return? Rate of return is the average gain or loss over a specific time period expressed as a percentage. So that is what ROR is, right? It is the average return that you're getting over annually over a specific time period, right? And why do we use targeted rate of return or rate of return? Why do we use it, right? Because what we want to be able to do is average out the return so we understand year over year over year what we're averaging on our return to make sure that we're hitting our targeted rate of return, right? Now, when we talk about rate of return, what I want to teach you today and what I want you to be focused on and what I want you to understand really well is called the compounded annual growth rate, or CAGR formula. The compounded annual growth rate. I want you to focus on compounded annual growth rate because compounded annual growth rate is very, 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 very important. Now, let's look at the math, shall we? So let me pull up my screen here. Give me a second. We're going to look at this math formula, and then I'm going to break it down for you, right? Okay. Let me share the screen. Boom. Right? Here we go. Let's share the screen, share the screen, share the screen. Where's my window? There we go. Boom. Let's share that. Here we go. Now, compounded annual growth rate formula works like this. And let's not let it complicate us too much. I'm going to try to break this down as best I can so it's simple to understand, right? Okay, CAGR equals EV divided by BV, right? 1 over N minus 1, right? EV equals your ending value. BV equals your beginning value. And N equals the number of years that the investment has been sitting. So what do I mean by that? Let's say you invest $10,000, right? So this is, again, your principal. This is your principal investment. This is the money that you're taking out of your bank account or your investment account to make the investment. You invest $10,000. Now, we're going to look at a 3-year time period here to understand how CAGR works, right? So over a 3-year time period, in year 1, you started with $10,000, you got $13,000. Now it's grown to $13,000. So you got a 30% return in year 1. In year 2, remember, now your account has grown to $13,000 after year 1. In year 2, it grew an additional $1,000 to $14,000, which means that you got a 7.69% return in your second year. Now in year 3, remember, your account's grown to $14,000. In year 3, your account grows from $14,000 to $19,000. What that means now is that you got a 35.71% return for that year. But what we need to figure out is, what does that average out to be over that 3-year time period? So what we would do is take the ending value of $19,000 and divide it by the initial principal investment of $10,000, right? Once we do that, we're going to take the number 1 and divide it by the number of years that you had invested, which is 3 years, and we're going to subtract it by 1. And what we figure out is that your average annual rate of return for that time period was 23.86%. That was your average annual rate of return, right? And that's really good. That's a really good rate of return. But remember what I told you up front, right? That the higher the rate of return, the higher the risk. The higher the return, higher the risk, right? So one of the key things that you have to understand when you're thinking through the first step of setting up your risk profile is what you need to make year over year to be able to sustain your life and grow your assets to a point to where when you retire, you're going to be able to retire comfortably. And the first step to dealing with that is figuring out your targeted rate of return, your goal. Now, don't let the formula stress you out or anything like that. I have a great calculator. I have a CAGR calculator that I'm going to drop as a link in the description to help you understand and use CAGR to be able to get you where you want to be, right? So I have a great calculator for that. And so, you know, that calculator should be very helpful for you guys and should allow you to be able to calculate this pretty easily. And I'm going to share this calculator with you. Let's look at that, right? So let's take a look at the calculator, right? And don't worry, I'm going to drop this in the link for you so you are able to use this calculator for yourself. But I'm going to pull it up for you so that way we can take a look at it together. Okay, when you look at a CAGR calculator, what it's asking you for is your starting value, your ending value, and the number of periods, right? So if I'm using this calculator, let's say, for example, I have 20 years before I retire, right? I want to retire in 20 years. So when I look at number of periods, I'm going to put 20, right? And let's say I'm starting out with a $10,000 investment. And let's say that at the end, I want to be able to have $100,000 At the end of 20 years, I want to be able to grow that 10,000 to 100,000, right? Once I click calculate, it tells me what my compounded annual growth rate needs to be, right? That means I need to be making 12.2% on average every year to be able to successfully grow that $10,000 into $100,000. So that means that some years I can make more, some years I can make less. But when I average it all out over the time period, I need to make sure that I'm hitting that 12.2% every year on average, averaged out, right? To be able to make and grow this money the way I want to grow this money for myself, right? So I'm going to drop this calculator in a link for you guys. I'm going to drop a link. It's going to be in the description for you guys. So I hope, it is my hope that it is going to be very helpful for you guys. And there that is. Now, with this, I want to explain to you why knowing this math and understanding what ROI is and ROR is very, 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 very important for you, and can just this small piece of information right here can make all the difference for you from a risk management standpoint for your principal. All right, let's look at this, right? So here are the facts, right? The top performing index funds, S&P 500 index funds over a 10-year historical period, on average, generate a roughly 10 to 12% rate of return for their customers. Over a 10-year period of time, the top performing S&P 500 index funds, and we're going to get into what index funds and all of that is once we complete this series and go through asset classes. But what we're saying here is that the top performing S&P 500 index funds over a 10-year period of time on average generate a 10 to 12% per annum or per year rate of return for their customers. This is important to understand because these top performing index funds, S&P 500 index funds, and top performing funds in general have some of the brightest people on Wall Street managing them. People with extreme amounts of credibility, extreme amounts of experience, and I'm talking decades, licensed, all of that, right? And they're very, very good at what they do. And on average, they do a 10 to 12% per annum rate of return over a 10-year period of time. I want you to think about that, right? And that's good. That's a good rate of return. That's a pretty decent rate of return for the requisite risk. That's a really good rate of return, right? Because, an S&P 500 index fund, is a moderately low risk investment. So, that's a great rate of return relative to the risk, right? Now, here's the thing. Knowing that little piece of information is big. And let me tell you why. See, let's say you got somebody that comes to you, we just gonna call him Pookie or Juju, right? Let's say Pookie or Juju run down on you and they like, yo, you invest $100 with me right now in 90 days, man, I'm gonna hit you with $150 back, right? Boom, boom, straight up. All right, cool. That's a 50% rate of return, right? Or a 50% return on investment. I'm sorry, that's not a 50% rate of return. That's 50% return on investment, right? In 3 months. Let's carry that out for a year. Amortize that out for a year, right? And what does that really look like? You're making 50% in 3 months. So that means if you can make 50% every 3 months, what we're saying is that this is a 200% per annum rate of return. Remember what I just told you, though. I just told you, right, that some of the brightest people on Wall Street that manage index funds over a 10-year period of time do an average annual rate of return of between 10 to 12%. This guy is telling you that basically he can generate a 200% rate of return in a year period of time. That is an impossibility. So to see that 200% rate of return, your risk is all the way through the roof. There is a very high likelihood that you're never going to see your money again, which means that you were so focused on the rate of return, the return on investment, right, that you forgot the most important part of this, which is the capital preservation part, right? When you understand that the average annualized rate of return in an S&P 500 index fund over a 10-year period of time averages out to 10 to 12% per annum, when you hear somebody tell you 50% in 3 months, run. If you give them your money, you are basically sending your soldiers to slaughter. I want you to think about it like this. And I actually got this phrase from Kevin O'Leary. And I think that I was watching Shark Tank. This was some years ago. And Kevin O'Leary said it like this, right? And I never forget it. I loved it. I adopted it. So thank you, Kevin. If you ever see my podcast, and you ever see this episode right here, thank you so much. I really appreciate this one because I love it. He said like this: your money, they're like soldiers. You send them out to war to take hostages and bring more back. When you forget that capital preservation is the most important part of your investment thought process, what you do is you fall into traps, fall into schemes, fall into scams, fall into situations that cause you to lose that principle. So essentially what you're doing is you are sending your soldiers to slaughter because they're not coming back, period. And I want you to think about that. And I want you to keep that firmly in your mind because that's so very important. So to sum this all up, because that's all I got for y'all today, I'm working on making these videos shorter, right? And giving you short bursts of information so you watch it to the end. You can learn what I want you to really learn, right? I'm seeing the analytics on my YouTube page and I realize that people are not making it through the end of my videos. So that means that I need to shorten up these videos and give you quick bursts of information that you can take with you, right? So that's what we're going to be doing. It's going to take us a lot longer to get through it, but that's okay, right? Because as long as you learn the concepts that I'm trying to teach you, then I've done my job. And that's the most important part, right? So to sum all of this up, don't forget, the goal of investing is to maximize capital appreciation while mitigating risk to its lowest common denominator. You want to make as much money as you can while taking the least amount of risk possible. And the most important part of that equation is capital preservation, making sure that there's a greater than not likelihood that in the worst case scenario, you can at least get the principal back that you initially invested. Focus on your targeted rate of return and figure out what you need to make to be able to live the life you want to live based on your initial investment. And you've taken the first step to being able to think through and craft the type of investment portfolio that you need that will be able to give you the results that you want long term so you can retire and live the comfortable life that you want to live. So with that said, listen, if you like this content, you know what I mean? Go ahead and hit that like button, hit the subscribe button, hit the bell notification, leave me a comment at the bottom of this video. Let me know what you think. And most definitely, if you are an Android user, hit that join button. And if you are an iPhone user, make sure you hit the link in the description or the link that's going to be pinned to the bottom of this video. So that way you can join the hashtag Real Woke Live Chat community and be eligible to participate in the hashtag Learn to Earn Cash giveaway, where I give away a minimum of $1,000 every single month right here live on the hashtag Get Real Woke podcast. Thank you guys so much for spending time with me. I hope you guys learned a lot. I hope it's beneficial for you. And I hope that this first lesson on, being able to set up an investment risk profile for yourself was very, very helpful, educational, informative, and something that you can be able to apply immediately. Amen. As I always tell y'all, until the next hashtag for the Free Friday, I'm out.